Lockdown day 4. Oh yes. Anyway, luckily, companies like Famous Four, and other organisations are out there still shipping parts around the country, which is great news because I've got a load of bits now to put this engine back together again. So, what have we got? It was the sump gasket, but I thought paying like £9 to get a sump gasket delivered because I can't go out because I'm self-isolating and I need to get this stuff delivered to me. So I thought, sod it, let me just get a gasket set because this stuff's always going to be useful in the shop, in the store, whatever. I got another rear seal just in case. Oh look, this one's better. Anyway, I can go in the store now because what I've basically done now is rather than the one I used yesterday, the Britpart one, I could not get the rubber seals to fit into the bearing cap on the back there, so I ended up using some silicon sealant. Let me just get the oh hello relay. I used this Durco, there we are, Durco HT, and I squirted that all into the groove and I smeared it all around. I made sure that the groove was full of that shit. I then positioned it in the crank, and I don't think that's going to leak. I think it will probably be better than using it. But I noticed this one, the beer mat version, comes with cork seals and not rubber seals. I got these cork ones, but they weren't the right ones, and also they were too fat. So never mind, bollocks to that. So I ordered the gasket set. I ordered a rocker cover gasket because there's signs that this one is leaking, but that can go on when the engine's back in again. Sump gasket's the most important thing right now. Drive belt, because whatever. A new sump washer, front oil seal, set of plugs, nice, oil filters, and that was it. You know, Famous Four, these chaps, marvellous. Use them for quite a lot of my stuff. And I shop around. I use Devon 4x4, which is just, luckily just down the road, so I can pop out to those guys. But Famous Four are another supplier I use, and our paddock spares. All good suppliers, don't mess me around, good customer services, etc, etc, etc. Right, so what we need to do now, I think, to get this sump gasket on, I need to get the sump out from underneath the engine, so I'm going to have to lift it up, clean up the sump, which is going to take a little bit of time, I think. I might video it, I might not. Probably not, actually. I've got a tin or a box around somewhere that is full of slop. There we are, this one will do. So I'll pour it into there, catch all of the crap out of the bottom of the sump, because there is some gloop in there. And while I've got it off, while I have it off for now, I might as well give it a good clean up, the sump that is. Then we can bolt the sump back to the engine, put the flywheel back on the back, put it back in the car. The other thing I did yesterday, by the way, I'm bored, I cleaned up all the chassis rails and everything. So chassis rails are all nice and solid. Just gave them a little, I haven't done in there though, just a bit of a wire brush, cleaned everything up. I'll degrease the original paint on the front here, look at that. Degrease it, and then I'll paint something like, I don't know, a Vactan over the top, and get it so it's all back together again. That's the fuel line sticking up over there. I might have to move him. Yeah, let's get this engine back in. That's today's job. Engine's going back in. New clutch, sorry, original clutch, new thrust bearing, new clutch bearing, and we'll get this back in. Yes. That's what I mean by the gloop. It's just solidified oil. Don't want it. It's all coming out. It's because the engine's not been probably serviced frequently, but the rest of the engine appears to be so clean and tidy inside. There's no way am I leaving all this shit in there. It's like tar. And it's just what old engine oil does. Luckily it's settled right in the bottom of the sump. This is quite a lot of it. useless stuff. Get rid of all this, and then I'll give it a good old rinse out and put it back on again. After I've cleaned all the gasket faces up, of course. That's kind of what I was talking about, really. Gloop. It's not great, is it? It really isn't. But yeah, I think the engine is healthy enough inside that we can probably get away with that. Right. Got the engine cover back on. Sorry, the flywheel housing back on. Looks a bit different from it did when it came off. The big O-ring that goes around the outside of the rear bearing seal is a bit of a ball's ache to get in. So my top tip for this is locate these two bolts at the bottom first of all, and position it so that the bottom is so basically it's going out at an angle. It's going out that sort of angle. And then do these two bolts and progressively tighten those, and it will work its way up. And then if you are finding that the seal is hanging out, all I did then was get the jemmy and just push it back in using the tail end of a jemmy. A flat blade screwdriver will probably do exactly the same job, and then did the top two bolts. So it went in there without tearing it. Right, next we need to get that pilot bush into the flywheel. I'll do that. Pilot bush next. So basically need to drift the old one out. There probably isn't a huge amount wrong with the old one, because now I've cleaned it up, it doesn't look anywhere near as bad as it did when it was first in the car, but there is some grooves and ridges to it. Before you knock the old one out, you'd be wise to make sure the new one fits on the gearbox input shaft. So that's the fella it needs to go onto, and it fits nicely, and there's no wibble wobble jelly on a plate there. So what I tend to do with these things is tap them out. It shouldn't need a huge amount of force. So I've got the flywheel standing on a big metal cup, which is part of my puller press kind of, what's this thing? Wheel bearing removal toolkit. Very, very useful set of bits that can be abused and are abused. Impact socket. Don't fuck around with things that aren't impact. Find one that's roughly the right sort of diameter, and we'll tap that out. Yeah, so all I do, it's already moving, which is good. Nylon faced hammers are always useful things to have. It's mostly all the way out now. So now we're mostly all the way out, we'll put the new one in. A bit of spray lube or something on the edge just to help it in. That'll do it. Copperies, just to guide it in. Again, nylon hammer. In. That's all you do. Why people don't change them, I don't know. Right, so that can now go on. Let's just check the state of the old one. It would have probably seen more life, but what's the point? Well, that's it all in. So I managed to nip up all the bolts around the top. It's all nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. Engine mounts are back in. Cup of tea. Or coffee. Might have a coffee. I do need to put a label on this thing though, that there is no engine oil. So let me do that now before I forget. I didn't video it because I couldn't be bothered. But I've fitted all the nuts, nylocks, BSP, BSF, British Standard Fine nuts. And I've also fitted the outer hubs because I've got the lock washers in. They're all done. That's the whole front end done. I'm going to put the steering arms together tomorrow. Get those on, and also I'm going to paint the bulkhead. Get that on as well. This car's going to rapidly start looking more like a car. So just dusted on the very first coat. Fucking thing. Yeah, it's all right. I went a bit berserk over here. There's a few fish eyes come in, but this area here I'm quite happy with. It's not really a huge problem. I don't want this thing to be too shiny, really. But yeah, I'm going to leave that half an hour and then come back and do a second coat. So the paint I'm using here is just an enamel. It's a single pack enamel. Mix 10% with thinners. Spray at 45 to 50 psi. Beautiful day today. Look at that. More clouds today. High clouds. Very nice. Second coat went on. I've got a fucking great run over there, but I can deal with that once it's all in place. It's not looking bad, is it? I mean, it's a fairly heavy duty enamel based paint, this one. I'm using it with about a 10% thinner. I'm not too worried about orange peel, it's a fucking Land Rover. That's coming up all right. That'll do okay. Right, I'm going to let that flash off now. It needs about half an hour at least. And then I can give another go, a dusting. Probably now I've got the thickness of the paint on it. And I haven't done the inside yet. I'm really just concentrating on the outsides. Faces, so at least I can get the bulkhead on the car tomorrow, and then I can paint the inside once it's on the car, you see. That's the logic behind this. That's going on all right though, isn't it? Needs a bit more paint up here. It's got a good gloss to it, but probably a bit too much of a gloss. Nice authentic British Leyland 1980s orange peel there. That'll soon level out. Let's have a look at these dampers. So these two dampers came off the front of the car, and to my mind they're actually not that bad. First of all, they've got resistance, they've got pressure. Both of them have. They're not the prettiest things out there, but in fact that one's probably got slightly less pressure on it. No, it's about the same. Just the weight of my arm on it is descending. So we could be a bit more scientific about this. So let's mount you. And let's have a look at the vise. So first and foremost, what we can do is we can actually just put both dampers up, lean on both at the same time and see if they both go down. I mean, they're both pretty tight. I'm having to push. I mean, I can feel through my shoulders I'm pushing down on both of the dampers. Oh, that one's got sticky there. Why has that got sticky there? Right, they're both fully compressed. What I'll do now, let's mount this in the vise and get the spring balance on the end, and then we can see how much force we need to open this up. Right, 32, 34 pounds. 34 pounds to open it up. 35 pounds. It's about 35 pounds. Okay. And that's opening up nicely. Nice and smooth as well. Okay, let's just see what that needs to pull closed again. I don't know if I'll be able to do it pulling it closed. We'll see. .36. It's not actually coming at the same direction, so it's a difficult one to work out, that one. 36 pounds. of force. Okay, so 35 and 36, it's about the same in both directions. Let's do this one now, it's the other damper. Oh, God, the fun we have, eh? What do we got here? 32, 34, 35, 35 pounds. Bit noisier. 35 pounds. Sounds like it's breaking wind, doesn't it? Is it breaking wind? I don't know. Right, let's try and pull in closed. And again, 35, 36. I think they're the same. Right, let's not worry too much about whether we're going to use it or not, because I think we are. I'm going to give these things a little clean up now. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over it with a wire brush and give it a paint, I think. A pair of these and they can go back on. Oh yes. What do you reckon? Sensible? I think so. I just used the wire brush, cleaned all the gloop, so that's uncleaned. Just cleaned, it's largely undersealed to be honest, but fucking look at this. Made in England, Rover. Do you think these are original to the car? Can't be, that's not possible. And they still work. They still work. Mind you, they're only 40 years old if they're original to the car, so I mean that's how times have changed, eh? Right, they're going to get painted and going back on again. I mean, it's likely they've come off a shelf somewhere. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know where these things have come from, but I was quite surprised to see that. Hey. Weird, huh? Right, okay, clean the other one up. The clutch slave cylinder. I always take the old one apart just to see if there's anything to be done for it, but I'm pretty sure that that is scrap bin. Right, I did get the pipe off though, so and also you can see the cup is absolutely rammed with brake fluid or fluid, clutch, brake fluid, clutch, whatever fluid. Anyway, it's down there. It's in the recyc. Now let's get the new cylinder on, and we can get this bolted up. Then I can bolt the start motor up, and we can start putting this thing together again. The paintwork on this thing is coming up nicely now, so I'm going to let this cure overnight. Then I'm going to give it another top coat tomorrow. There's enough on there to protect it, I'm pretty sure of that. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. I don't think it's going to be a particularly good match on that though, but never mind, shit happens. Installed the bulkhead back onto the car. This is the, I haven't painted the inside of it yet. I'm going to mask it all up in a second and paint the inside. Just needs a couple of towels to be honest. Blankets over things, and it will stop it from painting everything else. There is a slight issue with the colour match. I don't know what this colour is. I think it might be a very, very, very faded olive green. Or it might be nothing at all. It could well be that my colour blindness is not detecting that that's not blue. It might be blue, I don't know. I'm a little bit blue and green colour blind. That looks green to me. Anyway, so my kind of current issue is I don't really want to paint the whole car, and I'm not going to paint the whole car. How bad is it that this thing is going to look like green or olive green when the rest of it's going to be that colour? I'm going to have, well, I can only assemble it and find out. So I think first and foremost I'm going to paint the inside of this thing. It just wants, I'm going to spray paint it, not going to fuck around with it. Spray paint it, get it done, and then I'm going to start sorting out all of the pedal boxes and everything with new master cylinders. Again, I'm not painting everything that's going to go back on this car. It's not a restoration, it's more of a restoration, but with less rust on it. It looks alright, doesn't it? I mean, I didn't go berserk with the paint. I mean, it's just an enamel finish paint. I didn't even bother flattening the primer down first of all. I did spray paint it on. Look at that cracking orange peel there. So it's a perfect Land Rover paint job. But the bulkhead has come up really nicely. I'm pleased with that. It'll do the job. Nice and solid. What a difference, eh? What a difference. Right, I'm going to crack on, get this thing painted, and then I'm going to start sorting out get all the pedal boxes and everything sorted out so I can get those addressed and fitted. I've got the brackets down here to fit onto these sill plates because they're not in place at the moment. These pass the bolts through. Get that done, and yeah, we can start putting this thing back together again. Car needs to be assembled. I want to drive it. Give me a laugh, isn't it, eh? There you go. Right, that's all wet still. Nice enough though, that'll do the job. Shonky old Land Rover. Painted the fart flaps for the front. Shonky old job. Yeah, it's all looking alright, isn't it? Quite pleased with it. Right, okay, so over here we've been getting all of the pedal boxes and things out because this thing is likely to be the next stuff that's going together. I'm not going to go berserk painting everything before it goes back on because, you know, it's going to chase your arse around painting every single thing before it goes back on, and before you know it, you've done a complete nut and bolt restoration. So all I'm really going to do with this lot is clean it up, de-rust it, put it back in again. And the same with the clutch pedal and the brake pedal. So there's a brake servo there, and I've got new master cylinders to go onto both of these. So I need to, might as well fix it while it's on the bench, eh? Be a lot easier. And there's the brake. The brake switch is not on the top though, for some reason. I wonder where the brake switch has gone. This is the brake light switch, goes up here. Right, I'm going to have to find that. Okie dokie. So this shaft here, that's the one that goes into the inside of the car. Throttle pedal, and then that bar goes along the top of the footwell, in the driver's footwell, and then this bar goes across the middle of the bulkhead. And whichever way round it goes, it connects up. I think it goes that way round. It connects up this shaft here with the carburetor. I might give that a lick of paint though. It's not the best, is it? But then, it's one of those things, you don't know where to stop. Where do you stop? Okie dokie. Right, so all these little brackets and bits and bobs that need to go back on. Mustn't lose any of this shit. It's all important. That isn't, that's broken. That can go down there. Right. Where are we going to start with this? I think we might start with the clutch. Let's start with the clutch. We'll start from the right hand side and we'll work our way along. Give it a clean up, give it a de-rust. Might end up with just the lightest waft of satin black on it. I don't know. As is predictable, it's all getting very out of hand, isn't it? Right, okay, so here's the throttle mechanism with a cable tie attached to it for some reason. All I'm really going to do with this lot is wire brush it all back. I'm not going to bother undoing all the clips and bolts and things because you can guarantee pretty much every one of these is going to snap off, blah, 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 blah. So I'm just going to give it a good clean up. So then I went on to the brake pedal. Right, okay, there was method behind my madness on this. And it was, I don't know really. Anyway, I have to replace the brake master anyway, because the old one was leaking badly. And when I pulled all this apart, there was one pivot in here, which is this fella, this little clevis pin here, bone dry. That clevis pin goes through there and then through here. And it was absolutely seized. No amount of bashing will get it to go. And in the end, I put actually I used an old hydraulic tappet. Put a hydraulic tappet on there, put it on the press, and we got to 3.5 tons before it went, boom, no more, and it shot out. But I might just get a new clevis pin for that. It's gone in absolutely and utterly bone dry. Now, that said, I think the servo's okay. It's showing signs of the old master leaking, all the paint's come off the front there. And it'd be a bit of a shame really not to give it a lick of paint when it goes back in. Or will it? See, the brake master, I reckon, sorry, the brake box, pedal box. So the brake pedal box goes like that. So the windscreen is here. And we've got the servo goes on it. And then the pedal goes inside the car. Well, the pedal's actually not too bad, is it? It's not too bad at all. But then the throttle pedal looks a bit gash. See, throttle pedal needs painting. And then I ended up taking all the other bolts apart on it. Oh, boredom, mate. Boredom. Quite why I'm bored, I don't know. So that was the brake. And then we got the clutch. The clutch isn't quite as pretty. So once I cleaned all the crap and gank off, it's less pretty. The pedal is less pretty. And then, good news, I found a nice AP Lockheed Master, which I've disassembled, and the bore looks very good on it. So I'm going to give it a damn good clean out and get a seal kit for it. And rebuild it around that, because the one I've got as a replacement is a Britpart Special. And you know what? If I can get the original working again, give it a damn good clean out, I think I'll put the Lockheed Master back on again. But then you see, when I was looking at this, I was thinking, well, it'd be a shame not to give it a lick of paint, really, wouldn't it? Because we're going to get this thing. See what I'm fucking going with this, can't you? Because I'm a tool. And they're going to put that back there, and they're going to think, why didn't you paint it? So I've got some Frost chassis paint. Here it is. You've got it. So it was actually out yesterday because it's the only paint I had that I could just lob over rust, and I painted the whole dash with it. This is not. This is on the blind side. I mean, the only reason I put this stuff on is because it was thick and gloopy, and I had it. I don't want to have these things gloss finished, so I think what I'm going to end up having to do is clean them, rattle can them with an etch primer, and then rattle can them with a satin black. And I think that's going to do it. It's going to take me it's going to take me longer to clean them than it is to, in fact that one probably can be painted now. I'll wire brush the servo off and I'll give that a paint. And then I can put these back together again. Woohoo! Oh yes. Right. So yeah, I'm going to rattle can them. I'm not going to go berserk with it though. Interestingly, this pin, this clevis pin that goes through the middle of the clutch pedal, it's got this hole here in the middle of the bush, and the bush has a groove in it for grease. It looks like you take the bolt out on the end, well it is, because I know this, I take the bolt out on the end and it gives you access to that. So on the clutch pedal, you can lube it. On the brake pedal, however, you can't. Where's there it is. So here's the pivot pin for the brake pedal, and there's no way of getting into that. So I shall make sure that the bush is greased up before it goes in. It's all right there. It'll all go back together again. The weather's taken a turn for the worse. I think we've had spring. It's cold tonight. Blowy blow face. Right, let's get on with this. Clutch master. I decided to just put the Britpart master cylinder on it because I couldn't be bothered to wait for the parts, and I was itching to get this thing together. So the Britpart master's gone on. You adjust the pedal height, by the way, with these bolts here. I find it quite clever actually. The pedal's quite high at the moment, so we want to lower the pedal down. You adjust the two bolts. Clever, huh? Throttle pedals in. I need to do the brake now. What you'll need to do is, if you buy the repair panels, you'll need to extend the hole, because the hole goes up to about there, and you need to extend it up to the top if you've got a servo fitted, which is a bit of a ball's ache, because that meant I had to cut the panel after the paint had gone on it. Measure once, cut 15 times, and all that. Yeah, right. Didn't do a lot of videoing today. I wasn't feeling particularly in the mood for it, but I am now. Right, we might be a bit fogged up on this camera. Just a minute. I think that's better. Yes, there we are. Right, okay, so as you can see, great progress. Got the other brake line in on the front there, going into the TPs down here. I've got the masters on, so brake master, clutch master both in place, all ready to rock and roll. Steering box in place, all bolted up. All of the throttle mechanism has got into place. I dropped the windscreen in, but I didn't fix it because I couldn't find the rubbers. And then about a minute ago, I found the rubbers, so I'm happy now. Steering column, all the pedals are in. That's quite a lot. Ooh. We've got a problem with the top push. Oh, might be taking that out again. Fucking thing. Yes, anyway, it's all coming together. Found these fixings here, which spine that's going to go through to hold the dash top in place. Going to put the fly vents, or the fly shields in first of all, then the flaps can go on the outside. Screen can go in properly tomorrow. I'm going to get the whole bulkhead fitted up before I put the front wings on. And I'm going to paint this chassis with some rust treatment before we go berserk on it. And the doors can go on, floors can go in. I'll go for a drive, I reckon. Got a little bit of wiring to do. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. Piece of piss now. Just putting it back together again is always the fun bit. You imagine how, well, so you remember how this thing looked beforehand. It's an improvement, isn't it? It'll do the job. Oh yes. Right. I think I'm pleased with that. We've got all the steering and everything all hooked back up again because I've got no steering arms or drag links or anything on at the moment. And the roof is still loose. Roof still needs to be put into position. It might have actually, just looking up here, no, it's because the screen rubber's not in place. The screen rubber needs to go up there, and then I can bolt the screen header to the front edge of the roof panel. Oh yes, this has been invaluable today. This really has. Oh, for fuck's sake. Just need to put it down on a big old pile of gunk. Richard, you twat. This has been really helpful today, this book. Absolutely worth its weight in gold. As you can see, I've managed to fuck it. But never mind, these things happen. You get these on Amazon, by the way. You don't have to buy the OE copies. They've done a reprint. So this is that's the ISBN. Shall linger on that. It's been reprinted by Brooklands Books. Alright, so this book is published by Brooklands Books Limited, based on exact text, illustrations, blah 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 blah. First published in 1988. This is when Brooklands Books, I think, first republished this in 1988. I don't know what... This thing's got Series 3 and Series 2A in it. So it's right to the end of the Series 3 production, which would have been, what, 85? So that's about right, isn't it? Anyway, packing up.